Season 6, Episode 4, A Bonza Boom and Crash, Decommissioning with Dignity. Trajce and Sara compliment Alan's dress sense, smooth, Italian, modelled after a Kappa soccer sports brand, while Sara reflects on her rugby mum look for the day. Trajce teases Sara with her unlaced shoes in contemporary gangsta-fashion. Primed for larceny? It's a sport and leather vibe, says Trajce. Trajce contemplates the need to evaluate a design journey, going beyond the pointy end of an event with direct causational pathways. A designer is a parent of consequence, he declares. The crew focus on examples of decommissioning in design phases, decommissioning with dignity, and again circle back to our first episode 1 of Season 6, and listen to our extended live version.
Welcome to the system.
Yeah. 1, 2, kid. This speed. R for D. And we're gonna bust it up like this. I'm crushing empty bourbon cans with my dirty hands, poisoned by devil's weed, dreaming of foreign lands. Ever since my very spark of life, I've been caught in this astrological plight.
Hello, and welcome to the WOWORK podcast, a series of playful legal dissections on the most curious and alarming events in the world of work. The podcasters Alan Girl, Trajce Svetkovsky and Sara Pazell debate how to craft a better experience of work. Sit back, relax and enjoy. And remember, none of the things we talk about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work.
The big brother looking over your shoulder.
You're looking very fetching today.
Are we on air at the moment?
No, I can't tell with him sometimes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. No, Alan, you're looking very fetching. What is Alan wearing today for our listeners to visualise?
Mafioso, very cool leather jacket.
You remind me of someone out of Pulp Fiction, Alan.
Well, it wasn't my intention, but talking about, what you're wearing and your intentions in what you wear, and reflecting upon how you were so nervous about people seeing you drink ginger beer because you thought they might think you were drinking beer.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Even
good deflection. Remember the lawyer deflection? It was a really good deflection.
The shirt you're wearing today.
Oh, yes.
The shirt you're wearing.
Kappa.
Now, it's perfectly legitimate. I know that. But at a first glance, the logo on that shirt is worrying.
Right. For those wondering, what on earth are we talking about? Alan's wearing a leather jacket and he looks like Harvey Keitel out of Pulp Fiction, Victor the Cleaner.
I'm just looking like rugby mom.
Yeah, we'll get to you in a minute, Sara.
Yeah.
Alan's referring to the wearing of Kappa clothing.
You better spell it.
Kappa. And we'll let the listeners do their own due diligence.
No. For some of us who aren't as keen on soccer as you are
on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, Kappa is the official Italian sports label. It's used a lot. The sport climbing team, the Italian team have it, as well as all the soccer. I think it sponsors Soccer Australia. So Kappa is a very prominent label. But Alan, you're alluding to the actual logo.
Yes, I am. And it looks very, very similar to what you see on the back of some of the older prime movers around Australia.
However, it's not. On closer inspection, you'll see it's quite Genesis focused.
But I think there's a real contrast here. If you were to wear this into work,
yes, that
would certainly raise a lot of eyebrows, and I might even go so far as to suggest it's inappropriate. But you don't mind the risk of people being mistaken and thinking...
You have to be into trucking to understand logo.
Right, okay.
However, Kappa is a very famous sports brand. So for those of you wondering, what on earth are we talking about, you can Google it. But so that brings us now to Sara.
And she's looking fantastic as usual.
Rugby mum.
Rugby
yes.
mum.
She's got a very nice... a black jumper on. I thought it was a designer jumper.
I love how we walk in here, and Alan, you often do. They go, "Is that?" And you name drop a label, and I go, "Who's that?"
Yeah, that's it.
I'm just going to say yes next time.
It does actually look like an expensive brand.
Yes. Now because this is all very much design focused, we're looking at designer labels, and designer is the word today. We want to stay on the topic of design.
My shoes are Nike shoes purchased in Japan, in fashion district of Japan, and my son chose them for me, and he did my laces so that you never really have to do your laces. It's a thing, apparently, and I'm looking like, a shoe girl now that's like a little more modern than I really am, a little more contemporary.
They're not your average runners either.
You can just slide your foot in and out. I love the laces
is that
not done.
Paisleys on the side? Is that?
It's a little bit of lace paisley, the cool, funky Nike logo, a bit of grass from walking my dog this morning. But,
So the laces...
They're used.
So the laces, just for our listeners, the laces are...
unlaced.
Undone. So the shoes are unlaced, but they're just sort of tightened enough so you'll be able to sort of slip them on and off. You do realise what the inspiration for that is?
Yeah, because I always take them off here and I sit in yoga poses.
It's a bit more nefarious than that.
Oh, what's that?
Because most culture from younger people, it's usually inspired through deviant culture.
What?
That's how people wear their shoes who decide to break and enter. They're able to slip their shoes on comfortably, tiptoe through with socks, and then come out without having to bend down and untie the shoes.
My little angel halo's just tilted now. I've got little devil horns there.
It doesn't happen when you work in the criminal justice system. So your inspiration is actually deviant based.
So design for crime is a thing.
You're assuming there.
True.
Design for crime is a thing, and
Design for crime.
No, it's a specialty subset. Design for crime, because you're going to look at all the human behaviors, right? And how would you? What could encourage crime, or what could deter crime? Right? Design for crime, and so we
More
have
about deterring.
It's supposed to.
But your shoes are.
But you've got to understand.
Designed for the commission of an offence.
Yes, all right. So you've got to understand what could encourage crime and what could deter crime. So we have Greg Smith on our team now at Viva and Viva Health at Work. Greg Smith is a retired forensic detective, and he's now working on special projects for us, but I pull him in to work on design for crime, analytics and the environmental design. Isn't that cool, right?
It is.
Now, I noticed that you're cross-dressing because you've got Puma socks on.
Cross-dressing what?
Shouldn't be saying labels.
What? I'm cross-dressing?
You've got Adidas shoes and
Nike.
Puma.
Nike.
Oh, Nike shoes.
It's all androgynous, okay? I'm not cross-dressing for any gender expression. It's androgynous, yes.
And now you're about to levitate off the chair.
Yes, because I'm back in my comfortable yoga pose with the shoes off.
So today's a sport and leather kind of vibe today.
Sport and leather.
It's winter. It's in Brisbane.
We have talked about sport. We have talked about brothels, and we've also talked about the media, right?
That's right. But we're going to stick with design. We're continuing with design. We haven't finished this topic because it doesn't get a Guernsey much in any podcast, let alone IHS or work-related podcasts. But design and the scoping of design responsibilities and duties is something that should be elevated. You've just told us this case from South Australia, Alan, but we need to think more critically about the role or the continuing role of the designer, whether that designer's an engineer, a geophysicist, geologist, what have you.
Interior designer, instructional designer, animation, software designer, keep going through the list.
Because the Act defines...
Architect.
A design. So what is a design and what are the responsibilities?
Work system strategist, organizational strategist.
There's lots of levels of regulation too. There's prosecution's obviously right at the pointy end, but... inspectors just asking questions is a very powerful form of regulation. And I think there's space for inspectors saying to designers, what did you do to design this to be safe for the operator?
Thank you. That's what I'm asking. Or businesses to ask for too. So you're saying now from the regulator, different points of view, prompting these questions. So again, I'll repeat that again, right? The three phases, first purpose and context. Make sure that was really clear, transparent. And then is there a way... Can you play and can you stay?
Yeah, well, and it won't go away.
And it won't go away is the legal addition, right? It won't go away.
But sometimes, in my experience as a defence lawyer, businesses need just a little push to get them started and maybe to get started on that design journey. They need just a little bit of encouragement to take that first step. And I think an inspector just asking the question can be very powerful and have a cascading effect of causing a business to think more deeply.
And Trish,
about what
Certainly,
they're
in my experience, they haven't, or they don't. They don't embark on the design journey. They go straight for what happened on that day. Someone fell off, and they just go straight for the failure, the systems, but they're not peeling back.
Yeah, the blinkers can go up. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Which you don't want. So I think there's you don't want the blinkers going up. You don't want people pretending that there's no problem by seeking to blame others.
and you were just talking about the genesis of this issue. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that perspective.
Oh, yes. Well, that's right. Well, you think about the role of the designer. So we look at we're always focused. We just go straight to the pointy end. We go straight to the causation. We go straight to what happened.
An event.
The event. Well, it is. Well, that's how it's defined. As per our research, it's either an incident or an event or an accident. We go straight to that, the exposure. Let's look at, before we get to the end of the story, how did the story end? Let's look at the prologue. Let's look at the prequel to what happened in the saga. In other words, the genesis, the beginning, the zygotic state of things. In other words,
I don't. You have to dumb that down a bit
Translate
for me.
that.
didn't you do sex education in grade 9, Alan?
No, you'll have to dumb it down. I'm too old for that.
All right.
I didn't have sex education.
All right.
Really?
When two people meet
Really?
and they fall in love. Anyway, I digress. Now, here's the thing. The designer should be seen as that someone at that seminal stage. The designer has...
We're still
Sounds
talking about
religious.
love.
Sounds religious.
No, the designer has conceived this thing. The designer has created or is responsible for the creation of this thing. But then the designer shouldn't be forgotten just because suddenly now somebody starts fabricating.
Or allowed to walk away.
And that's the thing.
Or
Our
allowed to walk
responsibilities.
away.
If they had their moment of design,
But, okay.
You're right. I see them as a parent.
Reconception
You're right. The
occurred.
designer is the parent of the consequence.
And if the designer is the parent of the consequence, they want that feedback. They want to know. Many times designers don't get any information back. And they want to know what's happening when their child is a teenage roaming
But not
around in the back
always.
corners.
Not always.
Do they really want to know? That's right. But in
Yes.
principle, right? You're talking purely. You're now in the commercial space, right? The implications of their design. But I'm just talking about in the theory of it, right? In the teaching of design, a designer wants to know about the real use cases of what we call in human factors design and use, so that they can continually improve and articulate design strategies in different ways.
well, big business where they're very concerned about their reputation and want to keep their client base will be concerned because they won't want their reputation damaged. So they'll care about what are the consequences of their design. But for a small to medium-sized business, it's much easier to blame other people and not accept.
Accept the responsibility of their design and understand the trickle-down effect. Yeah.
Well, let me throw this. What do you think are some of the triggers of poor design? Why do you think sometimes things...
It just hasn't been thought through carefully enough.
Or the
the
needs are
human-
not articulated well for the design to ever
True,
meet
yes.
needs that keep
Yeah.
having changing goalposts. I can't tell you how many times people come to me and ask me about just work design, and I say, what do you want to achieve? And then it goes silent.
Yeah.
So you can't meet an objective if nobody can articulate what they wish to achieve.
So I'm not in the design business, and I sort of qualify my question by that, but I would have thought that it would be helpful to have people throw questions at the designer and say, what about this, what about that, what about like a brainstorming session where you're saying...
you mean it goes both ways, yeah. So the designer tries to understand the user's needs, and the user needs to understand the design process, if you will, and what's possible, what are the opportunities and constraints.
Do you think designers, I know this is a normal human thing because nobody wants to talk about yucky, icky stuff, but do you think there should be more emphasis or just as much focus on the unpleasant aspects of a design, i.e. what can happen when a design goes wrong and it's badly designed, or is that sort of glossed in the discovery, the design discovery process? So do you think it might help for people to say, listen, you've heard all the good stuff about my cool, funky design. Now this is what can happen if we don't design, or if we over-design or under-design, or if we just don't get it right. this is what could go wrong. Do you think designers and their clients are having that conversation enough or at all?
Well, Sarah, you were talking about roads before, and as you know, my partner's in the business of building roads, and also on a separate case where I've been representing a client here in Queensland, we've been looking at road design, and one of the things there is about braking space. You need to, if a car's going to turn off the road, it has to be able to safely turn off the road, not only for the car turning off the road, but also for the vehicles coming behind it.
But how much time, though, Alan, was devoted to the catastrophic, to the worst case scenario?
Well, if you don't create enough meterage for the vehicle to slow down, then there is going to be a catastrophic outcome because the car will crash. So design's a big part of road building, and you must think about what are the consequences of not building in those design needs.
But I guess what I'm trying to tease out is how much time, and Sarah might be better to understand that, how much time is devoted in the design stage of the bad aspects of a bad design, and how much energy is devoted to what could happen if things go awry. As you know, it's one of my favourite sayings. And I'm wondering, is it because it's just not in our nature to really drill down into the blood, the death, the trauma? So we just go, look, this could happen. If something happens, and then quickly, let's move on to the positive stuff.
Well, in those
you know
two
what I mean?
examples I've given you, one was a Queensland council, which I won't name for obvious reasons, but they basically they're putting the blinkers on, saying no one's been killed yet. Because no one's been killed, we don't need to do it. Whereas my partner has said to on behalf of the state of Tasmania, that if you don't design it correctly, we're not going to use you. Yes. So she's an example of someone who says the design has to meet specifications or we're not going to use it.
Yeah. I guess the question is, are specifications actually, are the specifications set because they actually really know all of the eventualities? And that's what you always have to keep challenging. And we've talked about HROs, high reliability organizations, that continually perseverate on their interest on examining the things that can go wrong. And I challenge that by saying, yes, that must happen, that should happen for robustness. But I'd also like to see organizations study success.
Welcome to the system.
And that doesn't happen. The light and the shadow. So you need to perseverate on looking at all the potential fails
together, though, aren't they?
That's probably
not
better.
Necessarily by organizations, or in certainly not in conventional work health safety thinking.
So you're saying they don't get excited
study
or celebrate success? Are you saying that they don't really do that?
That you have a team continually looking inside and outside your industry, beyond your industry, to look at study success cases. I've talked about
it's normal, part and parcel.
Do you do that at the university, where you start looking at how you actually have a study success team? You have a design champion. You have somebody that really brings that back into the business and continually tests that against other ways of operating.
I think they're always looking for. I think they look for
formally
for success. I don't think it's a formal success team. Yeah,
right. Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
So if you're saying there should be a success team, but then I would also advocate for a doom and gloom team as well.
Yeah, I'm saying that ideally, so high reliability organizations always talk about perseveration with the things that can go wrong, the fatal hazards. But also you must look at success, and that comes from some of my background that I've talked about being on those council committees in San Luis Obispo in California, where all we did each month was go and look at another industry, another business, and all of the success they're having, and then test and ask those questions without a major agenda, but just say this is novel, this is what we learned. And I've been in businesses where we did that, and we had teams that had the executives right through the front desk reception to a maintainer, a field operator, people who don't normally get a chance to work together, and they would be paid to go out, have a lovely day, and go check out, I don't care, it could be a hairdressing salon, and realize that the greeting was so personalized and special, and the aromatherapy and the cup of tea and whatever the situation, you say, that was so brilliant, and come back and have the discussion and just reflect. Is there any aspect whatsoever that would make sense in our business?
I'm really surprised you're saying that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. I don't see it happening.
Normal.
Do you have... Come on.
Look, I'm sure they...
Let's get real.
No,
you
it
actually have a
is-
team devoted, paid, commissioned to go outside your business and to continually
Like a cheer squad
mix your managers right through to your frontline staff, where they get a chance to work together, which oftentimes you don't even have managers go and look at their own work within the same organization, let alone work together on a project to go outside and evaluate that and have a continual feed of learning about great stuff.
But they should. I think they should have
that's
a team.
what I'm advocating.
Success team, and say, but yeah, I'm surprised. What I'm saying is I'm surprised it doesn't occur. I mean, if it does with
It's a
us,
rarity.
I wouldn't know. It does make sense. See, in a sense, you're a mystery shopper, really. Go out, see what others are doing, see
Mystery
what's
shopping is testing how the existing system is working. That's also different, and that should happen, right? How does the existing system work, right? Under routine scenarios, right? That's different than perseverating on fatalities or bad things that can happen, and that's different again in studying success. So that's testing system functioning. But here's the thing. All of it is part of resilience.
But can you really with conviction say, I went to this store, to use your example, and come back.
It was your example, by the way.
No, you went said get aromatherapy, go to a beauty salon,
right.
And then say, oh wow, I looked at this and it's successful. I mean, really, where's your evidence?
I do.
How?
If I go to a business and they treat me well,
you're going to feel success. Yeah, there you go.
I go back.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the feedback and that's the success core.
So when I've done this in management roles with teams, we said there is no agenda that anything you see or bring back must come back into our free, just to be creative and just to examine it and discuss why it was useful to you. What did it make you feel?
Yes.
What action did it cause you to do? Just go through and dissect it, and then we reflect on that together without an agenda. You don't have to say right now everybody must receive aromatherapy as they walk in our door for our surgery center or whatever it is. Okay, I'm just in principle go back and just learn and keep the thread of studying success in the fabric of the way operations occur, and equally learn from all the design experts and the domain experts who know the realities of work about all the things that could possibly go wrong, and test existing systems. It's 1, 2, 3, right?
I think there should be success teams around.
So we're talking also about
good job.
Thank you. I miss those days. I like influencing organizations that can do that. And you talked about, Alan, the role of designing, like almost in rail, they use the V diagram when they're looking at a new idea all the way through to commissioning of what happens and all the steps that happens in that. And you talked about, an operator and a user and maintainers. And what about in deconditioning? What about the decommissioning of any facilities or projects? Because, let me give you an example. It's just in work systems, right? Bonza, right? Bonza Airlines. Bonza Airlines is explain Bonza Airlines to our listeners, Trajce, and then I'll tell the story.
Bonza was I guess it was a bit of a flash in the pan airline in the sense that it's
very sad that it didn't survive.
They were here to promise exceptionally cheap flights pretty much along the east coast of Australia, and unfortunately they've had to return the planes back to the lessors.
And unfortunate for the employees too that lost their jobs.
Did they fly to Tassie?
They did. They didn't fly a route that was particularly good for me.
Okay.
But I think competition's a good thing. And
it was to help build competition in Australia, defray some of the costs, challenge some of the operations. It's happened again and again in Australia.
Yeah, and a long history of 2 works and 3 is difficult.
Yeah, it's just a smaller country, right?
Tiger Airlines was another one, a low budget.
So let's just talk a little bit about company ethics, right? So I'm in the airport about to board a plane, soon to board a plane. I arrived quite early, and it was congested and messy, and we were thinking, what is going on? And then we see these TV camera crews outside, and we get to see these interviews, and we're seeing all these questions at the desk, and I'm thinking, something's up, right? Something's up. And I was wondering, and a friend of a friend that works at the airport, so I'm texting saying, hey, do you know anything that's going on, right? And come to find out, that was the day that Bonza decided to announce that they were going under. So what happened? So friend of friend on the tarmac waiting for the flight crew for Bonza to arrive. That flight crew doesn't arrive. They've not told her not to expect them. So she's in Bonza costume, right? The passengers had not been told. So they're showing up for their flights, hence the confusion and the congestion, okay? So you're getting this picture right now. It was a frenzy. So the staff who were in Bonza costume, even if they were contracted staff, because many airlines work like that, they work through contracted companies for their front desk check-in, the baggage, for whatever. But they're all wearing the costume. So they've got to ask the airport managers for different shirts immediately because they're getting called by media, and passengers are accosting them, wanting to know what the heck's happening here. So they're saying, I don't know. I wasn't part of this. I showed up to work as well, and I don't have a job today. And it was just chaos. Absolute chaos. So tell me about the ethics in how that rolls out in organizational strategy. And then, of course, the announcement that bad luck, you'll have Buckley's, mate, if you want to get any airplane flights reimbursed, like your sunk costs, just deal, it's all sunk, right? That's what passengers were told.
No success stories there.
No success stories. So tell me about this in the ethics and what happens in that sort of decommissioning aspect and a poorly managed decommissioning.
Oh, it's terrible,
of a business.
It's terrible. I don't know if there's anything ethical about it. It's I suppose anyone who was to argue in favour of that type of situation would be saying you're minimising the damage to the creditors, but for members of the public, it's
and
awful,
employees.
and for the employees, it's awful, and it's of course much harder to find alternative employment when you're unemployed. So it would have been. From an armchair perspective, it would have been much nicer if they had given a month or 2 months' notice.
Yeah, I think once they go into free fall, once the organisation just implodes from within, forget ethics. It's all that's just the inherent nature of capitalism. You have a go, you have a crack, it falls apart. There are regulatory structures to try and keep it in place. But in a situation like that, it just goes into free fall, and the victims are, not only the customers but the staff. In cases there may be shareholders as well involved, but it's a gamble. This was a great idea. First of all, let's get competition in, and everyone's been, a duopoly is just not good. It isn't good. The barriers to entry did as a result of a concentrated market. However, the plan was always good: increase competition, keep fares. Keep modest, as they say, but it just failed. It's the risk that's taken in trying to get something working.
Well, we saw some of this play out, remember, during the period where we were in lockdown for COVID, and a lot of businesses had to make those terrible choices about, do we keep battling on or do we go into liquidation straight away?
It's just it's the cost of doing business.
And this is an example of poor system design at the decommissioning phase.
Yes.
And I would say, question to both of you. Does this mean that this is more rife for legal issues to rise whenever you have something that's just high conflict, poorly managed?
Well, at a idealistic level, when things are designed, including, both objects and business practices, you should design it for whole of life. You should design for the decommissioning phase.
Yeah, it should be. And the key word here is should. But the way it plays out in the real world, it's just free fall and it's just pandemonium, as was the case with your scenario, Sarah. People were showing up and running around. That's the reality of it. It should be that aspect, sort of decommissioning with dignity. So, it should occur, the 1 month, the payments, but no, it was just the parachute was pulled and that was the end of it.
I don't have enough I don't have any expertise in electrical cars, but I think that's a space to watch. What's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of batteries, a lot of used batteries, and what's going to happen?
Oh, it's a sustainability feature, Oops, forgot about that part. Yeah.
It's true. It seems to be we're inherently wired this way, the humans. We latch onto a great idea or it's an innovation or an invention. I think a whole of design process would be, have we sort of stopped to think of the consequences, whether it's where we're going to put these dead batteries, right through to can we sustain this airline, because there will be casualties in this. There will be people who whose livelihoods will. Yeah, so we don't seem to do that end well as a society. We don't do the last bit of very well.
In yoga, we talk about that as entering and exiting your pose with grace, just like a good relationship, right?
Yes.
Can you enter, can you live it, and can you exit it with grace?
That's a great, that's right.
Not the clumsy tumble, right? That so many happens at the decommissioning or the exit, the conclusion.
The last part. It was the last part we don't do well as humans.
We do not.
That grace, the style and the dignity sort of out. And companies going bust for whatever reason, whether it's mismanagement or just environmental factors such as a pandemic. That part isn't handled as well, and I think it's human nature.
There's always environmental factors, aren't there? Most recently it was a pandemic, but you get lots of things.
Anything that's disruptive. We sort of
drought, flood.
Yep,
we get so many of them in Australia.
Force majeure.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Why Work. You've been listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan, and if you'd like to know more about some of the things we've talked about today, please subscribe, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with information, names of cases, and other things that may interest you. Please be aware that none of the matters we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work. See you next time.
What you thinking? You jumped up in the system. Welcome to the system. Welcome to the system. Welcome to the system. Yeah. Welcome to the system. Here we go. Welcome to the system.